until I met you. Told myself I'd get by without love. Drowning my sorrows, avoiding tomorrows. Kinda felt that I just had enough. You light up my face with your jokes and your smiles, and the way that you came every night. Don't know what you got, but I'm sure glad I found you. Could be wrong, but it sure feels right. And here I am, I'm back on my feet again. Here I am, I'm back on my feet again. Surprised at myself for the way that I feel. So happy that you're here with me. Some women I've known have left me with nothing, but I guess that was just meant to be. And here I am, I'm back on my feet again. Here I am, I'm back on my feet again. I was out for the count, I was down, I was beat, I was crying. I was cold and hurt, I was hiding my face, sick of trying. I was so lonely until I met you. Told myself I'd get by without love. Drowning my sorrows, avoiding tomorrows. Kind of felt that I just had enough. And here I am, I'm back on my feet again. Here I am, I'm back on my feet again. Yeah, here I am, I'm back on my feet again. Here I am, I'm back on my feet again. Oh yeah, here I am, I'm back on my feet again. Here I am, I'm back on my feet again.
It is inside the CMS Studio with me, Chris Akin, and that, of course, was the BABYS, back on my feet again. And here's a guy that brought the BABYS back on their feet again. It is one of the original members of the BABYS. It is guitarist Wally Stocker. Wally, how are you, man?
I'm doing well, Chris. How are you doing?
Excellent. Cannot complain. Well, Wally,
Good.
gotta say, very happy to see that the BABYS are back out again and touring. Obviously it's not new. It's, you guys have been doing it for a couple of years, or for a few years now, 3-4 years at this point, right?
Yeah, I think we're going into our fourth year now.
Okay, excellent. Now, are you surprised that there are people like me that were unaware? Now, as a big fan of the BABYS back in the day, I was unaware until very recently that you guys were back. Are you surprised that it's taking a little while for people to rediscover the band?
Yeah, I guess in a way. We kind of, being away that long, and coming back with a new lineup and a new CD. I guess it's taken a while, probably longer than we thought, but it's just a question of getting out there and playing and getting the name back out there, and it would have been nice to had it taken off a little earlier, but things are starting to move, and we're having fun with it. So you got to sort of let it take its course.
Sure.
You can't really force it on people. So, but we're getting all of our, fans back from, 30 years ago, plus, a new generation of fans, kids that grew up in the house where their parents were playing BABYS records and, turned their kids onto us. And so now we find ourselves playing to like two generations of BABYS fans when we're out there doing shows,
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Now, Wally, maybe you can help me solve this, or maybe you won't get this as much as I don't get this. But I'm 47 years old, so my heyday of music was 78 to current. But I mean, my favorite time would have been like 78 to about 1990 is probably my favorite window, and that's sort of when you guys were in there as well, and that's certainly when you had your biggest hits.
Yes.
But you guys did not. It doesn't seem like the BABYS. I mean, people certainly, they remember, every time I think of you and Isn't the Time, and they remember the songs, but it's not like you guys got the Pink Floyd treatment from classic rock radio either, where classic rock, they picked 20 bands and yours wasn't one of them. Why do you think it is that classic rock stations, did not gravitate to the BABYS, especially when you guys had so much success there for, 4 or 5 years?
Yeah. I don't really know, because there is a harder side to the band, other than songs like Isn't It Time and Every Time I Think of You, there's some more sort of aggressive side to the band, and always has been, as far as, being a rock band.
Right.
We just, we recorded those songs because we not only liked the songs, but we liked experimenting with strings and horns and things like that. The female singers, and it was a real sort of it wasn't tunnel vision by any means. We were open to anything. If it sounded good on the track, then we would put it in. And I think with those songs, maybe classic rock's kind of thought of us as a sort of more of a pop band, sort of walking that edge between sort of commercial pop and sort of commercial classic rock. And,
right.
By the time we got to the third album and we had Head First out, I think, classic rock stations were kind of picking up on that, and then later on with Midnight Rendezvous and Back on My Feet, and then I think they started to realize that, we sort of did fit into that sort of classic rock scene,
Sure, definitely. Now, Wally, let me ask you, and this is only because this is as fresh in my mind as it could possibly be. Last night, for whatever reason, I sat down in front of Netflix and I watched the Eagles documentary, which I don't know if you've seen or not, but it's this amazing look at one of the biggest bands in the history of the world, and how even with all the success in the world that they had, they still imploded. And
yeah,
and it was amazing to watch how much they really kind of were not having fun, even though they were wildly successful at the end. Now, I don't know the circumstances behind the BABYS breakup, and you don't need to go into all that because that's obviously way old history. But I'm curious for you if it was a similar type of a thing where the success did not outweigh the individual problems within the band, which is why you moved on.
Well, being in a band is like, being married. It's
right.
You have your ups and downs and, disagreements and, but that's something that all bands go through. I couldn't name one band that hasn't had problems through their careers, I think, there was, some turmoil by the time we got to, the fourth album, and actually when we were making the fifth album, On the Edge, I could sense that there was some restless goings on, if you like, in the band, and some some people with some other ideas, and and sometimes it's just so hard to keep all that together and try and create new music together when not everybody is on the same page. And unfortunately, that happened to us. I think had we continued on to make another record after On the Edge, I think it may have taken us over the edge,
Right.
I think we were one record away from really, sort of, like I say, reaching, the final goal that we were really aiming for from the very beginning. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, it was kind of cut short, mm-hmm. And when it was all over, I felt kind of so empty. We were almost there, and certain how should I say? Just people wanting to take different paths mm-hmm. with their musical career, and so it kind of all just sort of faded away and dissolved, and everybody moved on to other things. But it was a shame because that was our band, and it was our music, and it was something that we created out of nothing, and it was a real shame to see it all just kind of disappear like that,
Mm-hmm. Certainly. Well, moving forward to today, because obviously that period went away, and you did a lot of other cool stuff as well with Rod Stewart and Air Supply and a bunch of other bands. So it's not like you sat home on your couch for 30 years. You've been, you've stayed busy and stayed in bigger bands. What was it that came about 3-4 years ago at this point where you were like, you know what, maybe it's time to put this back together again and see what could happen?
After the BABYS split up, I continued. Actually, I was in the Rod Stewart band, and of course Tony Brock was in that band too. Mm-hmm. So him and I sort of, got to play together again for a little while I was in that band, and then I joined. I did a North American tour with Rod, and we did an album and a live album. And then Rod was changing his lineup, and so I started looking for something else, and ended up with Air Supply, who were going out on tour. They were going to the Far East, like Japan and Hong Kong, and so I joined Air Supply thinking that I was just going to be doing that tour, just as like a hired gun, if you like.
Sure.
And ended up being with them for like 3 years. And then I was in Humble Pie. Jerry Shirley put Humble Pie back together again with myself and Charlie Hewen, who's now the lead singer in Foghat. Mm-hmm. And we did, about 2.5, maybe 3 years with Humble Pie, and then I was, I wasn't doing anything for a while. I was doing some sessions and things like that, and I was living in Los Angeles, and I ended up moving to Florida, and but Tony and I keep in touch, you know. We've always kept in touch, and I guess, probably like 5 years ago now, you know, he called me up one day and said, listen, you know, I'm thinking about, you know, maybe, you know, John Waite doesn't want to do it, and because we had asked John a number of times whether he would be interested in, you know, sort of getting back together again, you know, on a sort of trial basis and see how it goes. And, you know, he would always say, well, you know, I'm happy doing my own thing, and I don't think I really want to get involved in a band situation again. So, you know, we had to respect that. And so after a number of tries to try and convince him to maybe change his mind, like I say, Tony called me and he said, would you be interested in, you know, us looking for a replacement for John Waite, and, you know, maybe have another shot at it and put the band back together. And he said to me, he said, I'm not going to do it unless you're fully committed, like 100%. He said, if you're not interested, he said, I'm not going to bother. I'm not going to do it without you. So I said, well, yeah, I'm in. You know, I'm in 100%. I'm fully committed if we can find the right singer, you know.
Sure.
So, of course, Tony was in L.A., and I was in Florida, so he started to audition singers and went through a number of singers and kept sending me tapes and videos of these different singers. And then he called me and he said, I think I may have found the right guy, and I'm sending you, you know, because what he had all these singers in his studio, and he was just playing the tracks and having them sing on, you know, like his Knit Time and Head First and things like that. So he, you know, he told me it was John Bisaha and sent me all the details and the video, and I called him up and I said, you know, I think we might be onto a winner here,
right,
with John. And they said, well, I'm going to bring him back a couple more times, you know, and that's what happened. You know, we were both really, you know, because without that, there really wasn't any point in pursuing it, you know, if we couldn't find the right singer. And John was a fan from the old days anyway, which was really kind of exciting for us because, you know, he kind of knew the material and was a fan of the band, as opposed to a singer just coming in and going, well, you know, I'll sing for you, you know, what's in it for me kind of thing.
Right,
you know,
sure.
John really had the passion for the songs and for the band, and so, you know, that's how we basically settled on John. And, you know, to this day, I know that we made the right decision.
Sure. Was it instant, or let me rephrase this. How important was it getting to know him as a person versus just singing the songs? 'Cause clearly anybody with YouTube can find out that John Bisaha can sing the BABYS songs as well as John Waite ever did. You know, he's just talented. But
yes.
But all the talent in the world does not make a good bandmate, you know, and that's, I have to think that when you go back and reform a band that's been broken up for a long time, such as the BABYS were, that knowing that this guy was going to be a good guy might even have been more important than being able to sing note for note the old stuff. Is that true?
Yeah, definitely. I definitely agree on that. And he does, you know, he has the personality, and and he's just, he's one of the boys. He's he's just so excited to be doing this, and but he's also a very good friend. He's not just the singer in the band. He's like part of the family now, and his character, is very high, and he's just a pleasure to be around. As opposed to being around somebody who maybe can sing really, really good, and pull it off as far as vocals, but off stage, maybe doesn't quite have the personality and the friendship to go with it, Mm-hmm. But John does, and that was also, one of the reasons that we chose him was, that he is, he feels like part of the family, and although I've only known him now for these 4 years, I feel like I've always known him,
Right. Certainly. Now working with him, you guys actually put together a record, which is a very strong record. I'll have some of that, which is, it feels like the BABYS from old. I mean, you could certainly play it next to the old catalog and nobody's going to be like, oh, that sounds completely different. But at the same time, at least in my ears, it's got a little bit more grit than I remember from, at least from the first two records. The third and fourth records had a little bit more of a rock edge. This sounds like it has a lot more of a rock edge. Is that because that's who you guys always were? Or is that a little bit of what John brought in that was not there previously, or a little bit of both, or what?
Well, Tony and I have always had that rock edge to us, but we never wanted to lose the sound that we had back in the old days, that was the whole point of this. If we were going to bring back the band and obviously have to play, the old catalog live, then we never wanted to change the sound of the band. Obviously we wanted to keep up with the times, but had we come back with a completely different sound and completely different approach to it, I don't think Tony or I would have been, really, really happy with that kind of situation.
Sure.
And of course John and Joey Sykes, they brought in their passion for the music because they're both fans, and so as a team, as a band, when we made I'll Have Some of That, maybe some of that sort of rawness came out, as we were sort of creating the songs, but they both knew that Tony and I never wanted to lose the sound of the BABYS completely, and wanted to incorporate the female singers and strings, and but still have that rock edge to it, and so now when we play live, we can do any song from our catalog because we have a 7-piece now with keyboards and the two ladies on vocals, and we got an extra guitar as well now in Joey Sykes, which we didn't have in the old days. If both Michael Colby and Jonathan Kane, they could both play guitar, but they were mainly keyboard players. So, I was kind of, if Michael or Jonathan was on the keyboard, then I was really the only guitar in the band, and I had to really stick to just rhythm playing more than, sort of branching out a bit. But now we have the benefit of Joey on second guitar and keyboards, which makes the sound even fuller and allows me to sort of step out and, improvise a little bit and not have to worry about, just keeping it strictly rhythm guitar. So that's a bonus in itself,
Mm-hmm. Certainly. Now, Wally, when you guys first started playing gigs in 2013, I believe it was, what was the audience like? Were they immediately receptive, or did they come in a little skeptical and you had to win them over each night, which made you have to play a little harder or better, or were they just automatically, all right, Babies are back?
Well, the very first gig that we did, when we sort of relaunched the band, was out in Calabasas in California.
Okay.
At the Canyon Club, and we actually did it as a benefit concert, so we wanted to sort of reintroduce the band, under that sort of, it's like we're back, but we're going to make this a benefit concert, and the turnout was just great. The place was packed, and I think even we were taken back by the fact that everybody was just singing along. They knew every word to every song.
Great. And
that kind of, obviously after being away that long, we were a little tentative, to say the least, but halfway through the first song, I think the whole band realized that, hey, they haven't forgotten us. They still remember the songs, and that made us feel so good. And pretty much every gig has been that way, even if people don't remember the Babies, they remember the songs,
Sure.
And so all in all, we've had a great reception wherever we've gone, and that makes us feel, more at ease, and we can enjoy ourselves more, when you're not sort of tense and wondering, well, how is this going to go down tonight, and,
Right.
and as soon as we start playing, it's just it feels like one big party, I mean,
Right.
it's, if they see us enjoying ourselves, then they enjoy themselves, and vice versa,
Exactly. Certainly, man. Well, for people that are interested, they can go to thebabiesofficial.com and find out more about what's going on with the Babies. And there's Facebook and Twitter as well, which I believe are also The Babies Official. And Wally, as a tradition on the show, we always let the artist pick a closing track from their catalog to wrap this up. So what should we wrap the interview up with? And maybe tell us a quick story about it.
Oh, well, can we play a track from the new album?
Certainly.
Can we play the title track? I'll have some of that.
All right. Why that one?
Well, that one, Tony and I had the musical track for that many, many years ago. Tony used to have a studio down off of Wiltshire Boulevard there, and him and I would get together and, just mess around and put tracks down, and so we had the musical side of I'll have some of that, and of course it wasn't called that at the time, and I was, when Tony wanted to sort of put this all back together again, I said, well, I'm going to go through all my cassettes, and I'll see what I've still got from the old days when him and I just used to mess around there, and I found that musical track for that song, and sent it to him, along with some others that him and I had stored up, and which were actually used on the new album. And then John heard it, and heard the track, and while we were making the album, for some reason, that phrase, "I'll have some of that," was like used on a daily basis.
Okay.
And, I said to John, why don't you sit down with the track and see what you can come up with as far as lyrics, and, maybe we can cut this song as well and put it on the album. And, of course, it turned out to be the title of not only of the album, but,
Song.
so, it kind of took on a life of its own, out of nowhere, really. Because when we started the album, we weren't really considering that track. But as the album went on, it kind of just grew out of the sessions and finally made it to the album, and we ended up calling it "I'll Have Some of That."
All right, well, let's check it out right now. This is the Babies with "I'll Have Some of That" right here on Inside the CMS Studio.
Too many questions, too little time. Can't track the clues, can't go faster to find the catchphrase of life's grand design. It's been said in dark places or in the light with many insights. Sometimes means love or other vices, a doorway to someone's delight. Stand up, say it loud, take your swings. Oh, well, turn your world over, now it's your turn at bat. All that you have to do is repeat after me. Oh, just say, I'll have some of that. Don't lose control of the situation. All systems go, make your sing. Don't go too slow, pick up steam. Once you do, you're living the dream. Stand up, say it loud, take your swings. Oh, well, turn your world over, now it's your turn at bat. All that you have to do is repeat after me. Oh, just say, I'll have some of that. Appreciate, celebrate, communicate, substantiate, participate, don't procrastinate or hate. Modulate, reverberate, illuminate, translate, incorporate, concentrate, demonstrate. I want some of that. I want some. I'll have some of that. Ooh, I want some. Come on, baby. I'll have some of that. Oh, yeah. I want some. Oh, baby. I'll have some of that. Yeah. I gotta get it some. Come on. I'll have some of that. Stand up, say it loud, take your swings. Oh, Take a breath, close your eyes. Let's go someplace only we can find. No one else, just you and me. This is where I always wanna be. In your arms, falling all over. Life is busy, looking over my shoulder, stealing every minute it can. But I get back those moments as soon as you're closer. Every time I see you there, rolling on day to day, knowing love is headed my way. Home again, through the door, happy to be where I was before. That's in your arms, falling all over. Life is busy, looking over my shoulder, stealing every minute it can. But I get back those moments as soon as you're closer. Every time I see you there, we all amount to nothing. When love is over, the dream is over. Now that I've got you under my skin, I'll never walk Here we are, this love we're in, feeling closer than we've ever been. Safe again, it speaks to me. This is where I always wanna be. Still in your arms, I'm falling all over. Life is busy, looking over my shoulder, stealing every minute it can. But I get back those moments as soon as you're closer. Every time I see you there, life is busy, looking over my shoulder, stealing every minute it can. But I get back those moments as soon as you're closer. Every time I see you
It is inside the CMS Studio right here on the ClassicMetalShow.com. That, of course, was the BABYS. Brand new stuff there with a song called I See You There. And a guy I'm hoping to see here in Cleveland in another month or so. It's John Bisaha, the singer of the BABYS. John, how are you, man?
I'm doing great, Chris. How are you today?
Excellent, man. Well, John, I got to tell you right up front, when I was offered to interview both yourself and Wally, I went back and listened back through a lot of old stuff, a lot of YouTube stuff of the new stuff, and man, you bring it, dude. I mean, you really bring it, bring it like the old school.
Well, thank you very much. I kind of think I am still kind of an old school guy, just doing it today. I was around when the BABYS were around back in the day, just a little bit younger, but, just as hungry and just as energetic, and I'm really happy to be able to bring the energy tonight. Today it's great.
Sure. Now, no secret, you're stepping into some very, very big shoes with the BABYS. Talk a little bit about how you got discovered by the band, how you got the gig, and, if that was or was not at all intimidating to jump into a band that has had such a big history.
It was a dream come true for myself. This is the technology age, right? Back when we were doing it back in the 70s and the 80s and, early 90s, there was no real technology. Internet wasn't around. Cell phones weren't around. You were actually had to be there to experience it, and maybe carry one of those brick camcorders on your shoulder to try to,
Right.
take any kind of a video of any kind of shows. But, in this day and age, it's very cool to reconnect with friends that you haven't seen in years. And one of my friends was a drummer that I played with back in the early 90s named Mike Hansen. Mike was in a band called Glass Tiger, and he's done a bunch of other gigs over the years. He's right now playing with Hurricane. Okay. But Mike called me up out of the blue and said, "Hey, man, I've got a audition for you if you're into it." And I was doing my own thing at the time and getting ready to open up for Roger Hodgson that week, so I was getting ready to go to a rehearsal, and I'm like, well, you know what? Yeah, if it's a 70s and 80s band who needs a lead singer, to replace the old one, I might be into that. Or maybe a brand new act that's got something that really needs that, that rock vocal with a real major label and hit. He goes, yeah, it's one of those. So I'm like, okay, cool. Which one is it? And he starts playing the name game, and by the end of a couple of names, I thought it was Bad English.
All right.
Because he dropped Ricky Phillips and Jonathan Cain. I'm like, yeah. Okay, so Bad English. But he goes, well, you said 70s and 80s. And I said, okay, hold on. Are we talking Tony and Wally? And he goes, absolutely. And I pulled over. I said, okay, take down the numbers the right way. You get me in touch with these guys and get me in front of them. So that's how it all kind of happened. It was about 3 months of a nice whirlwind at the, I guess the end of, say, 2012, because we're hitting, into the fourth year and, bringing this thing back. But nice 3-month whirlwind. And at the end of the day, here I am. So, it's a great thing. I was a big fan of the BABYS back in the day. So when I would write my material, I would write something that had girl background vocalists and potentially maybe some horns and some strings. I was a big fan of the BABYS, big fan of Chicago and ELO. That was the makeup of my band.
Okay.
So, it was a dream come true to be able to do something like that, where, now I'm singing for the BABYS. Fill in John Waite's shoes, you got it. I mean, at first, there was a lot of pressure, and, I really wanted to make sure that I was bringing things, as true to the sound. So I sing a lot of the licks. I mean, it's, I do virtually 90+% of really what John's saying, because I know that the fans want to hear that, but I might bring something of myself into it as well. So I have a great time doing it. Fill in John's shoes is a big call. I think I'm able to do it, and I think I just bring a little bit of myself to it. We rock a little bit harder than the BABYS did back in the day, and so I come from that vein. I'm more of the 80s and 90s versus the 70s and 80s, right?
Sure.
So that's where our energy comes from. So
Okay.
There you go.
Excellent. Well, since you talked a little bit about the pressure, let me expound on that a little bit. I've interviewed Arnel Pineda, and certainly I've known Kelly Hansen since he was in Hurricane. So, I've had the chance to talk to these guys, and they have different opinions about what that pressure is, A, and who it comes from, B. When I spoke to Arnel, he really didn't seem like he cared at all about I guess that's the wrong way to put it. He didn't feel pressure from the fans nearly as much as he felt from Journey, from the actual guys in Journey, where Kelly, you know, he stepped in and had to spend at least a year hearing about Lou Gramm. So I'm curious for you, when you mentioned the pressure, where did the pressure come from for you? Was it from the band? Was it from the audience? Was it both? Was it yourself?
No, yeah, you know what? The pressure, actually, you're right. You hit it at the last. It's more from yourself than anybody else. I want to make sure that I do justice to these songs because that's why we're back. You know, we're back to be able to do, you know, the catalog is very, very rich, and a lot of people don't know how deep and rich the BABYS catalog was, but I just want to make sure that I do justice to these songs, because at the end of the day, it's not about the pressure we have, me filling in for John or taking over, you know, where John left off. It's all about bringing these songs back and doing them justice. So most of the pressure hits on yourself, you know, but at the end of the day, you know, hey, I know that if I do my best and I do my job, then, you know, it's all going to be great. Side story, Arnell. 1986 was doing a DoD tour overseas.
Okay.
We were like Japan, Korea, Okinawa, the Philippines, and the like. We were basically a rockin' band. We played with El DeBarge, Loretta Lynn, and a bunch of LDS kids that were doing a variety show. That was the 4 acts that we would bring into all these, you know, tents, mess halls, and you know, variety show places, and we were able to go do stuff for the armed forces across, you know, those different countries. So we go into the Philippines, and we get there around 7:00, and they say, go out to Cal Street, go to Cal Jam. You guys got a gig tonight at 9:00 for the civilians. And we're like, okay, cool. And they're like, so you get there around 8 or so, you know, you guys go on at 9. So we walk through the door at 8:00, and this is right when Raised on Radio was just out. So it was the BABYS comeback, right? I mean, not the BABYS, but it was Journey's comeback, if you will, because they hadn't done anything for quite a while. And we walk into the scene, and we're listening to Journey as we're walking through the door.
Wow.
And it's like, it's Journey. And then we turn the corner, and there is 16-year-old Arnell Pineda, just jamming, just jamming. And we did our set, and then afterwards we all hung with their band and stuff. Couldn't speak a lick of English, but boy, he sounded 99% just like the tone that Steve brings. That's, you know, that's a voice. So, yeah. You know, absolutely. You know, great time meeting him back in the day. So we have contact once in a while. It's kind of fun to remind him, I knew you back when you were 16.
Right. Very cool, man. Well, John, you've had the chance now to record with the BABYS and recorded a strong record. Did you have actual input into it, or were you singing their songs that they had been working on for however many years, or how did that all work?
The record that we came up with was a whirlwind in 2 months.
Okay.
So Wally had been living out in Florida, and we were trying to get him to move and relocate to California so we could all be together and get ready to do our gigs. And we really needed to record this album because if we had something to push, it made us relevant, you know, made a reason for us to be able to go out on the road, you know, and have something to at least support, as well as, you know, show the fans that, you know, the BABYS weren't done. So Walt was, we'd done a couple of shows, and then Walt, we would fly him in, and then he flew back one last time to Florida, packed himself up, and the wife and the cats, and came across country. But he didn't get into town until, I want to say, the first week of February of that year, of 2014. And we needed to get the record to the distributors completely mixed and mastered by tax day.
Okay.
So we literally had 2 months to get that thing done. So we fast-tracked the heck out of it. At one point, I used to talk about how fast that record came together. It was the first time, or the next time we play these songs off the record would be the first time we actually played them as a band. So it was a collective. Half the record was brought by Tony and Wally working on a bunch of songs back after the BABYS had broken up, you know, so back on cassette tapes, you know, some DAT tapes, half the record, right? Just instrumental tunes that, you know, I would go put my lyric to. And then Joey and I worked on a couple of things, and Joey worked on another, you know, great set of the tunes. I think, you know, another almost virtually half the record was something that was Joey written, myself written, or Wally and Tony instrumentally back in the day that we put lyrics to. So it was a combined effort, but we had to fast track it. So there's no organic. It was very odd that we didn't sit in the studio, write 12 songs, 14 songs, because that's how many we tracked.
Right.
Write 14 tunes and track them. It was, hey, here's 55, 60 songs. Okay, great. Let's pare them down. We get it down to 30. Okay, great. Here's 30 songs. Snippets, really. Some of them had finished content. Some were just, like I said, instrumentally. And we pared that down to 20. Then we pared it down to 16. And then we tracked 14 within 6 weeks, mixed and mastered in 2, so that we could present a record. So it was a whirlwind effort. It was produced at Tony's studio out in Chatsworth called Silver Dream Studios. And, so he did all the engineering and the production on it, and, but man, you blink the eye and there it goes. It was very, very quick.
And what's unique about hearing that story is if you listen to it against anything else in the catalog, it fits. It doesn't sound choppy in any way, shape, or form, not only as an individual record, but as compared to, what the band is best known for. It's a little heavier.
Absolutely. It's a little heavier, right? There's a couple of tunes that, like right out of the gate, Every Side of You, that's a classic BABYS tune, right? And then we hit you with a couple of deep cut type things, and, then we've got the couple of hits. I don't know if you've got the cuts that have Not Ready to Say Goodbye on it, because that was actually the first song we recorded for that record, but the distributor elected to keep it off the actual physical, album, which was very odd for us and kind of pissed us off a little bit. But, that's classic BABYS, right? We've got the horns, we've got the strings, we've got the babettes, and that's kind of what we bring to all our gigs, right? It's 7 people on stage doing full justice to the record. Nothing stripped down.
Absolutely. Now, John, for you as a writer and as a musician and now as the singer of the band, where is the line? And this is one of these yin-yang questions. It's a, kind of stupid oddball question, but where is the line for you between sounding like the BABYS and between being the singer of the BABYS? Because, you can do the impression. There's no question you can do the impression. All people have to do is go to YouTube and see that you can, note for note, do the old stuff. But I don't imagine that is super satisfying for a singer and a creative person such as yourself.
So, very good question. Thank you for that. It's actually very seamless and pretty easy. So, like I said, back in the days when I was really doing most of my writing and growing up writing, if I had to name my top singers, John Waite's in my top 5, right? So Robert Plant's always in there. Daryl Hall is in there. Steve Perry's in there. Lou Graham's in there. John Waite's in there. There you go. There's my top 5 singers that I really, I won't say patterned my voice after. I have to throw 6 in there. Frankie Valli was out of this world, and he taught me how do my falsetto, and actually did teach me a little bit because my mother knew Frankie. So, and actually my wife Holly did a couple of shows with Frankie. But yeah, so it's very odd. You see the two of us together, and it's anyway. Those are my top 5 singers. So it's very seamless because I think I bring a little bit of each of that into what my own individual personal style. So it's kind of easy to go. Yeah, yes, I would love to be able to go and do another BABYS record where I get to put my stamp on it.
Right.
At some point we might be doing, we're toying with doing a live record of the catalog, right? Even doing like a live anthology record.
Nice.
So, that could happen. You could see us maybe doing a new record and, retreading some of the other hits, and put our own stamp on it. That's been bandied about. But you're right. I mean, I have my creative outlet, but honestly, I really, really dig being able to getting on stage and singing these songs and watching the reaction that comes back from the fans. That's where it's all at. I mean, going off and doing records, that's all great, but playing out in front of the fans is really where I get off on it. So.
Sure. How are the hits? And I say this specifically about the hits, Isn't It Time and whatnot. How are the hits different for you now personally that you have to present them professionally versus the old days when you're singing them in the shower or whatnot?
Yeah, To know me is to know that I kind of don't half-ass anything. So if I'm singing in the shower, I'm singing as hard as I'm singing on a stage. Maybe a little bit harder with the adrenaline pumping. But I don't like to noodle. I've got a very compressive kind of voice, so when I'm going to let it rip, I'm going to let it rip. So
Right.
it's loud, you know, and that's where I get my bite. So I don't, you know, it's pretty much, I'm either going to do it, or I'm not, you know, and so, you know, you get all or nothing really, you know, so I have a good time doing it. It's certainly fun. You know, anyway. So.
Very cool, man. Well, you guys are on tour. I will be catching you guys when you play Akron, Ohio here next month. What can everybody expect from the band on this tour?
So we're in the midst of it right now. You know, it's kind of like Weekend Warriors. We're hitting, you know, a town near you. I don't know. I think by the end of the summer, going into fall, we probably will have hit about 8 or 9 states, which is pretty cool. But we played the Tangier last year. It was a great crowd. We had a great time doing it. We expect to see all of you back. You're going to get maybe a few new songs that you haven't heard, or new old songs. We're actually introducing a few more deep cuts from the catalog, you know, as well as playing, you know, typically we'll play a couple, 1, 2, 3 songs off of the record that we just you know, put out last year. But you're going to get a lot of energy, right? You know, and you know, we're actually hitting it pretty well right now. So it's another year more under our belt. You know, the last few shows that we've done, we've played in front of 17,000 people, fronting for Rick Springfield, and 3,500 people playing with Sweet and Lita Ford, and you know, so the reactions are great, and that just pumps us up a little bit more. And, you know, we've got another year under our belt. So we're starting to, you know, really gel even more. And, you know, you get that little show product going a little bit where, you know, we keep everything rolling. So, you know, more of the same, just a little bit more heavy, having a good time doing it.
Very cool. Where can people go online to find out more about the Babies?
You can go to our website at thebabysofficial.com. Or you could go to the BABYS Official on Facebook, or tweet the Babies at Twitter, and I think the BABYS Official as well on Instagram. So follow us all over the place. We're really launching, you know, and thanks to Jenn Mitchell who set this up, you know, doing some really cool PR stuff right now to really get the word out. I mean, you know, we need people like you and the people who are listening to really let everybody know that the Babies are back, because without you, you know, there isn't anything. But if we don't have social media being able to hit it, you know, we're certainly not mainstream right now where we're on a Kimmel show or a Fallon show. So somehow, some way, the word needs to get out, because I guarantee you, all you got to do is try it. And once you do, you're going to be hooked. You're going to love what we do. So we're hitting it pretty hard, and look for us in the city near you.
Very cool.
And I greatly thank you for your time, Chris.
Oh, no problem, man. Well, as a tradition on the show, man, we always let the artist pick a closing track from the band to wrap it up. So what should we wrap it up with? And maybe tell us a quick story about it.
So you have the whole catalog that
Yes,
you can
sir.
play?
Yes, sir.
All right. So this is, I'm getting the hair raising right now. So I went through, like I said, 3 months of auditions, and it was, at the end, there were, you know, they say there were hundreds of people that were auditioning, but at the end of the day, there were 3 or 4 of us that were really vying for the position. And our classic songs that we were basically singing, we were singing to Head First and to Isn't It Time? And so, you know, back and forth, this guy's first, this guy's second, you're first, you're second, you're third, you're fifth. You know, it's like, where are we, where are we? I was in my car, and I was just having a quiet moment with myself. And, you know, sometimes when you get into that, you know, a lot of people can call it, you know, different things. You could be in a meditative state. There could be, you know, you could be in a spiritual state, whatever. I was in that moment. And I just had this real warmth kind of come over me. And I was feeling that, you know, everything's going to be cool. And, you know, for most of my life, you know, I got fairly close to, I got a couple of independent record deals back in the day. You know, I had some decent success doing Jesus Christ and Jesus Christ Superstar all over the country and doing some things like that. But at the end of the day, I really, really wanted to front a rock band that really had a catalog of hits, and the BABYS was perfect for me. I really wanted it. So I'm sitting down, very quiet. I feel a warmth come over me. And all of a sudden, and I'm listening to this whole catalog, getting my fingers underneath the music, because if I'm going to be playing bass, I need to know where everything is. And all of a sudden, Gonna Be Somebody comes on, and I really start feeling it, and then I get a phone call. And the phone call is, you're the new singer of the BABYS, and it happened on Gonna Be Somebody. So I would pick that song, and maybe we'll do that one in a town near you at some point.
All right, well, let's check it out right now. This is the BABYS right here on your Classic Metal Show.